We're going live today. We got to talk about, how Charlie Kirk's memorial shocked the world in Glendale, Arizona. The house where the Phoenix Cardinals play at. And we got to really talk about it because the world is, doing what the world do. Now you have late night host in terms of Jimmy Kimmel getting canceled, and he is what you call a member of the cancel culture, and somehow it found a way to get Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And when we really look at the situation, we have to really understand that a house divided cannot stand. One nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all, and the Democratic Party as a whole is over. And I will explain to you today by the end of this live stream that the Democratic Party is over. And I'm a nonpartisan independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a MAGA. But I do know that the Democratic Party is standing in the way of justice for not only my people, Black Americans, but America itself. Just like in the Civil War, the Democratic Party broke away from the Union to preserve slavery. So they're breaking away from the Union right now to preserve what they call their democracy, and their democracy is expiring. And to confirm that fact, there's Proposition 50 going on in the state of California, which they're spending, millions of dollars to try to get passed. And basically Prop 50 is to, and their slogan is to save democracy. We're not going to save democracy because democracy has no God. Democracy is not the definition or the Webster's dictionary definition of rule by the people. Okay, democracy, their democracy is ruled by an elitist few that funds an operation to tear this country down. And I'm going to show a couple videos today in terms of the paid protesters. And I'm gonna let you hear from the horse's mouth, because today we coming with some receipts, because a house divided cannot stand. Now that the black man has liberated himself and delivered himself from the burning house of the Democratic Party, and we'll be willing to sacrifice the women. Okay, you could take the women, you could take the whole LBGTQ elemental P card, because you guys are, all black folk, not kinfolk, and most of these individuals, they basically do not even have a black card. Because right now you're looking at a black man, not an African American. I never been to Africa before. I never understood how a human being could be from two continents. And even when somebody comes here and migrate to America from Africa, they don't say I'm African American. They say, I'm from Ghana. Okay, they say I'm from Kenya. I'm Kenyan American. I'm from Ethiopia. I'm Ethiopian America. They don't say the whole continent, but somehow, some way, their democracy has been able to rebrand itself and to literally destroy the fabric of this country. Good morning. And when I say this, I'm serious, because America is at a turning point. No pun intended. Charlie Kirk ran a organization called Turning Point, and his memorial service in Glendale, Arizona shocked the world. He shut down, basically a whole football stadium. They talking about 100,000 strong. And Charlie Kirk is a martyr, okay? Because he's bigger than he's ever been, even in depth. Because over the weekend, I'm sitting back watching football with some of my, college friends, some of my, sandbox brothers. And one of the individuals says, what party was he from? Because when I was listening to him, it didn't seem like he was either way. He sounded like you. And I explained to him, yeah, good morning to you. Good morning. I was explaining to him that, yeah, he's associated with Trump, and, he's one of the young guns in the MAGA movement, and, he's conservative. But my brother said, he sound like you. I said, what do you mean? He a man of God. He liked the nuclear family. I didn't get that. So the individual that killed him, I said, well, the individual that killed him is, his family is MAGA, but the son, Tyler, Anderson or Tyler Robinson, he, fell in love with that thing, one of them pronouns, and got indoctrinated because his mother said it herself that this young individual, after leaving Utah State University, somehow he went on a rogue situation, and the FBI is investigating. The FBI is trying to find out if there's some coercion or some type of backdoor communication or some type of link. And I saw some videos, and a lot of times, these videos be artificial intelligence and all of that. So you can't really, take it as a grain of salt sometimes, but there's individuals saying his account, he got $50,000 in his account and stuff like that. So the FBI is actually on it. And when the FBI is on it, that means, they're going to figure it out. Okay. But we do know without a shadow of a doubt that he had a male roommate who was transitioning to being a female. We know that. That's factual. Okay. That is factual. So you could just destroy the MAGA movement, or, Charlie Kirk was unalived or shot or assassinated by one of their own is a big lie. And that big lie is the reason why Jimmy Kimmel is on hiatus right now. And I think Jimmy's going to apologize. Jimmy Kimmel, he's going to apologize and get his job back, because that's what they typically do. And if you didn't know, it's a family business. Jimmy Kimmel's wife is the executive producer for the last 10 years of the show and a writer. So she probably wrote the joke. So they're going to have a meeting. They're going to sit down. They're going to probably apologize, because remember, the same thing happened to Whoopi Goldberg. She said something on The View that, that wasn't fair, or something that, one of the investors or promoter or anybody that invested in The View may have not had liked. So she pretty much, was fired or put on on notice, and she had to apologize. But typically women, and individuals who typically, want to be in the limelight, they typically apologize because they don't have what you call a standard. Okay, you believe that, but just because your job, you're going to apologize and do what the boss says, do. That's why in the black community, you don't have any male leadership. You don't have any black male leadership because black men, we are, probably the most conservative individuals on the planet. That's why, my brothers thought that, Charlie Kirk was a independent, but come to find out, clearly he's the, one of the turning point is turning out to be one of the largest super PACs or fundraisers, for the Republican conservative movement, because Turning Point has actually raised funds 1,800% more than the DNC. And the DNC chair, Ken Martin, is on record actually crying and saying that the Democratic Party has went too far, that he is not able to raise funds. And then you have this particular situation when Gavin Newsom marked him out, Charlie Kirk, out on a podcast. And if you didn't see it, my last live video, I showed some clips and I broke it down on how Gavin Newsom literally put him out on blast by basically being the face, the voice of the Republican Party, and, communicating clearly with Donald Trump, asked him on record, what's the next move? What are you going to tell the president to do next? So now that he's no longer with us, his wife basically said at the memorial service, which shocked the world, that the world literally shut down, because I went to got a cup of coffee, went to the donut shop, got a sandwich, and some of the young YNs, if you didn't know what a YN is, the young N-words that's out there creating havoc, they're all Democrats. And this without shadow of doubt, because the gangbangers, YG, even Nipsey Hussle had a song called F Donald Trump. So every YN that's committing murderous acts and crimes and all of that, they are a brand of the Democratic Party, because clearly the Democratic Party is a bunch of shooters, because they big homie, we would call the individual Tyler Robinson, who assassinated Charlie Kirk. That's their homeboy, because that's what they do. They shoot each other in the hood, and then you got individuals who are getting indoctrinated and shooting and killing people on a grand level, and they all are connected. They all are connected. And when somebody says Tyler was a MAGA, no, he wasn't a MAGA. He was let's keep it 100. His parents was MAGA. His parents said, and they had a press conference, that he had begun to go far left in the gay and trans community. Okay, so you can have a black sheep in the family. It is what it is. But sometimes, you don't, roll with the family tree. But like I said, he wasn't no MAGA. He was up. So let's keep it 100. Okay, and that's what got Jimmy Kimmel fired, by basically saying that. Okay, because why would somebody that's conservative and that loves humanity somehow go out and do something like this? And like I said, I believe that they're protecting something much bigger. I believe it was a scheme. The FBI is on it. I believe there was some financial gain. Okay, because for an individual to supposedly be raised MAGA in a red state, to somehow, turn so fast. Okay, and like somebody said, he fell in love with that thing. And that thing was that man transitioning to a female, which is impossible, but it is what it is. So, like I said, there's no way you could put that on that side, because if this was gangbanging and a blood shot a Crip or a Crip shot a blood, and even if the Crip shot a Crip, he did it for the Bloods. So basically maybe he changed, he's a hood hopper or whatever you want to call it. But maybe the individual's confused. We know he's confused. There's mental illness going on. But if this was some gangs, let's take it to the street level. If this was some gangs and your major opposition got murdered by their own people, he did it for the ops. He did it for the opposition. And his facts is only two genders. And the only way we can push this envelope is if we allow the Democratic Party to perish. And when I say this is that, in California, they're trying to raise funds for where basically they're spending all types of money on what we call Proposition 50. And Proposition 50 is basically to save democracy. So if democracy wasn't dead or dying or on life support, why would we have to save it? And I'm just going to let you know, a black man is not going to revive the party. Now, African Americans, there's a big difference, between black and African American. I identify as a black American. Okay. Anybody that identifies as an African American is what we call a sellout. A sellout. Because that sellout will fight for anything. He will fight for trans rights, gay rights, minority rights, immigration rights, but will basically be a turncoat and turn his back on his people. There's some unfinished business that's on the table that we have not talked about. I've still be reading the declassification files of Dr. King. Dr. King in 1967 was mad at the 90th Congress for not passing meaningful legislation. Dr. King started what we call the Poor People's Party, and Dr. King was lobbying the federal government for $20 million for the next 10 years to basically end poverty and for the Negro and the poor whites. So this is why I say, this is why we got to get rid of the Democratic Party, because once we get rid of it, we get rid of the pronouns, we get rid of the dark money, we get rid of the evildoers in high places. There's an Illuminati thing going on. There's the Greeks. It's a whole lot of things that's literally anti-American, and we got to expose them. So basically, I'm gonna share some videos with you this morning, and we gonna just keep on and keep the same energy, because democracy is dead, and we're not gonna save democracy. Okay, because Proposition 50, they're setting themselves up to fail, because I don't know any young YN or a hood Negro that will vote for 5-0. Okay, 5-0 stand for the law enforcement police. Prop 50, no on 5-0. And then after that, we could say, blank 50, and that's the middle finger to 50. Okay, because they're spending so much money, and the individual that's in charge, Gavin Newsom, took $60 million that was earmarked for reparations studies. Okay, and he's invested the whole bag into passing Proposition 50, which has nothing to do with anything. And it's a reaction to what the Republicans have done in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, they gerrymandered the state. They wrote Al Green and Jasmine Hood Rat Crockett out of office. So if they want to be a part of Congress, they have to run again in a different district. So Gavin Newsom comes up with a wise idea, or he got his marching orders from his baby daddy. Okay, and we know who that is, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let them say it, who basically tell him what to do. And that's pretty much, try to steal some seats in the state of California and push a narrative and agenda, because it is what it is. Okay, so now that we are starting to understand, and the world is shocked at the reaction of the death of Charlie Kirk, and now we understand what a martyr is and what a martyr looks like. Because a martyr basically dies for a purpose and dies for a probable cause and a reasoning, and they are bigger dead than they are alive. Because like I said, I have individuals who never heard of Charlie Kirk in their lives, sending me videos that I've seen already, and they didn't realize that, man, he was just a Christian man. Okay, and then when they ask them the questions, and he's supposed to be racist, these are questions that are asked by people, and that's his quick-witted reaction and response, no different than something that I would say. And it is what it is. So his legacy will live on, his life will live on, and his wife is the CEO of Turning Point, and she's pushing the line. So with that being said, we got to understand what we're fighting against. We got to understand what the issue is. We got to understand what's really going on. And there's a dark side of the United States. There are some individuals that claim to be Americans, but they don't love America. You have some evildoers in high places that's, creating shell corporations to hide the money, to put money behind these individuals to do things that an ordinary human being with a soul and that loves God would not do. So, first of all, to be a Democrat, you can't love God. And I'm saying this to you pastors, to you so-called leaders. If you are a part of the Democratic Party, you are serving, two masters. And matter of fact, you are serving the devil. And all I'm saying is, as a nonpartisan independent who is a Christ, not a Christian, that's Christ-like, but a Christ, I'd rather work with a hypocritical Pharisee, aka the Republican, because at least they got a God that they believe in. Not joining the party, but at least having some conversations. Because the Democratic Party is the party of Satan, and that party has to go, because you guys are going straight to hell. And you pastors, you are going straight to hell. And all I can say is repent, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand, because the Democratic Party is crazy. The Democratic Party has no God. The Democratic Party does not have any belief system. The Democratic Party has sold its soul, and it's ran by the Illuminati. It's ran by the secret societies. It's ran by all these individuals who basically want to fatten their pockets and look out for their families, and people who get off on hurting other individuals, just like you individuals who basically applauded the death of an individual. I got people talking about F Charlie Kirk, and I'm sitting back saying, dang, would you say F me if somebody, assassinated me because of my beliefs? And then sit back and then make them think, because we love you and we got to help you. If we don't share these situations, if we don't share our true feelings, you will never know how we feel. So now that we could tell you how we feel, then you can understand, because no one should be applauding the death of any human being. And anybody that claims to be a lover of God, come on, man. Come on. Lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. The Democratic Party is evil. The Democratic Party is a party of slavery. The Democratic Party is a party of Jim Crow. The Democratic Party created the KKK. The Democratic Party fought against segregation. The Democratic Party fought against every civil rights that was ever created until that party killed JFK and put in the Southern Dixiecratic Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson. And then he basically said, how those niggers voted Democratic for the next 200 years. And he took us from being Negro. He took us from being a race and created an African American. Okay, along with Jesse Sellout Jackson. I am somebody. Okay, they basically, Jesse Jackson Rainbow Coalition sold out. The NAACP sold out. All of these operations are sleeper cells of the Democratic Party, and they rely on government funding to continue to promote a narrative and an agenda that's anti-American. It is what it is. We got to keep it 100. We got to be real. Al Sharpton is one of them. Jamal Bryant is another one, the podcast preacher. Okay, because over the weekend, he 2 weekends ago, he was in Chicago with the sellout mayor Brandon Johnson, trying to stop the federal troops from coming to the city to stop crime. Okay, because the police chief in Chicago said, if the federal troops were to come to my city, we're going to find a way to work together, because the more law enforcement we have, the more visibility we have. Statistics show and common sense says that crime will shut down. It will stop. It will come. It will just boom. It'll be over. But Brandon Johnson, okay, the mayor, he sold his soul. He cannot stop the crime, because if he stops the crime, he may be in a situation where they'll pop him, because once they invest in you, you belong to them. You're their good economic. Just like in the civil rights, just like in the Civil War times, the Democratic Party did not want to let its slaves go. But the United States did not want slavery to expand. The Kansas-Nebraska Act and all of these, they wanted to expand slavery. But the Republican Party said, no, we got to shut this thing down. And Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, basically, signed the Emancipation Proclamation and utilized the newly free slave as an ally. And approximately 400,000 black troops signed up willingly to fight on the Union side and defeated the Democratic Dixiecratic South. So for a black man to be associated with the party of slavery, the party of Jim Crow, the party that created the KKK, the party that spirit is demonic and does not have a God. How can the Democratic Party have a God when they tell you you have a penis and testicles, but you're not a male? Okay. How can a party tell you that you could trans into something else? How can a party tell you this is the party coming from the top? And this is why we got to figure this thing out and understand. And this coming from the mouth of a black man who loves God more than he loves himself. A black man who loves himself and will treat his neighbor as I treat myself. So I love God with my heart, mind, and my soul. And secondly, I love myself. And that means I got to love my neighbor as I love myself. But when you are, a race traitor, when you abandon your race and when you become an ethnicity and you get into the cesspool and a cesspot with that Democratic Party, when you want to be a part of Babylon, you want to be a part of Sodom, there's no God there, because in the word of God, it says, depart from me. I know you not, ye worker of iniquity. And if anybody got a problem with that, it is what it is. But democracy is dead. It's on life support. And they are asking for funding and they want proposition to pass to keep the life support system on. It's dead. Okay, they came up with the lost cause at the end of the Civil War, but then they came up with a movie called Birth of the Nation, and the South was rebuilt on free labor using the Vagrancy Act of 1866, meaning if you was a newly freed slave and you were wandering, appeared to be homeless and jobless, they put a ball and chain on your ankle. And we didn't have this conversation to the civil rights movement, which was hijacked by Planned Parenthood, which is to kill babies, which was hijacked by the Women's Live movement, along with the gay movement, and that's the LGBTQ. And now, you can't even be black no more because you got to be a part of the party, because their investment is not even in the African American sellout. They lost the black man, but the African American sellout, that's not even, they're not even investing in that. They're investing in the migrant. They got African American men and women fighting for the rights of killing babies, men sleeping with men, meaning we're not making babies, going against the nuclear family, not promoting family, and fighting for the rights of immigrants. And I thought to myself, why would anybody do that? And it said, hey, do some research. And right now, I'm about to show you the research. I'm about to show you the research. Okay, because self-love is the best love and truth is the antidote to the lies. And any man or woman that tells the truth unadulterated and stand on it, love God, because they'll be willing to deal with any consequence that come with that, because the word of God says the truth shall make us free. And that's real. So I asked myself, why would any black man, well, not a black man, any African American go out there and protest and do all of this and do all of that when your own community is still, killing each other, poor, poverty, homelessness, drugs, homicides, all of that? Why we can't fight for that? And then I think about, oh, Black Lives Matters. Oh, Black lives don't matter. That was an operation that destroyed the nuclear family, promoted the same-sex agenda, and promote the, all of this, kill babies, crime, all of that. Because somehow, some way, George Floyd got killed by the rogue cop Eric Chauvin, and the Democrats funded an operation to pretty much burn down its cities, its blue cities in its red states. And that's crazy how we fell for that. Okay, because George Floyd was a drug addict. George Floyd should have just got his big black ass in the car. End of story. But somehow, some way, he got choked out, and then somehow, some way, they, it triggered, mass protest for what? For what? For a big black dopehead? No disrespect. I'm just keeping it real, because they tried to make him a martyr. Tried. Okay, and that's what the Democratic Party is all about. Fake. Okay, now this Charlie Kirk guy, I mean, come on. He's much bigger than he was alive. Like I said, I got individuals that's saying basically, they've been sending me videos because they never heard of the guy before. And we're going to stand on that blackness. Okay, and black is the acronym for Black, Latin, Asian, Caucasian, Kinsman. We just running our own. We don't have nobody telling us what to do. Okay, and there's a FBA, Fundamental Black American. They've been trying to link up with me, but I'm gonna reach out to them real soon, because I got individuals who just import teas from Jamaica and other countries, hating on Black Americans because we sold our souls to the Democratic Party, and we got to shut it down. But my thing is, how is it that an African American could go out and protest and do all of these things? And I'm gonna prove it to you right now why they would do that. Okay, stick with me. I'm gonna prove to you why a African American would do that. I'm gonna prove to you. All right. I'm gonna let you hear this video. And this video right here, because it boggled my mind as to why, we sell out. And I'm sitting back, people talking about we're gonna go downtown and protest this weekend. I'm like, for what? What are we protesting? We still, got reparations on the table. Gavin Newsom played us with the reparations and all of this, and we still fighting. We're still dying. We still killing. We're still doing all of this while we fight for everybody else. And then somebody sent me this video, and this explains why you have sellouts out there protesting things because of, I'm going to let you go ahead and hear it for yourselves. All right, let's check it out. And then I'm going to give some commentary, and then I'm going to go ahead and break down what happened with your boy Jimmy Kimmel, because Jimmy Kimmel, getting canceled. You got people out there protesting, but he's not the only one that's lost his job for saying something he shouldn't have said. So check this out. Here's the reason why African Americans go out there, or anybody go out there and protest, because they get paid to do it. Let's go.
Independent journalist Nate Friedman has been investigating a growing trend in major U.S. cities, including New York and Washington, D.C. We spoke with him to dig into who's behind these paid protesters and what's really at stake.
Paid
It
protesters.
seems lately more and more in the headlines are protests over all sorts of issues, but are these organic or are they paid for? Well, we have with us a very special guest. He's an independent journalist who's found out these are paid protesters. So, Nate Friedman, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So listen up. They're paying, like the paid protesters, and he's going to basically expose some individuals that's paying for these protests, meaning they're anti-American, and somehow, some way, they got American citizens out there supporting an agenda that's anti-American and anti-God.
So talk to us about, how you found out a lot of these are paid protesters. Did you go in there knowing this, or did you find this out organically?
No, I found it out organically, actually. So there was a big Tesla takedown protest in downtown New York City, and I was struck by how Elon was loved by the left prior to Trump winning. And I saw things switch on a dime, and not just against him, but calling him a Nazi. And as a Jew who had family who've died in the Holocaust, I took that to heart. So I wanted to know what was really going on. So when I went there, I immediately was confronted by a woman who had a troll sign and just followed me. So she looked to have a picture of me on her phone as one of the people sort of that they have to ensure that can't ask questions there, which is pretty crazy. And then I was trying to do any kind of interviews I could, and more protesters would come in with big right-wing troll arrows, and they would have teammates that would beg the person that I'm trying to interview to not do the interview. So that's when I realized, okay, this is not organic.
Wow, so you're just going through, going up to people being like, hey, why are you here? And people were, first off, they had a photo of you, so they knew who you were.
Yeah, they knew who I was. They were taking more photos to intimidate me, but she knew who I was right when I walked in.
That is crazy. Well, often it's been said to follow the money. So in this case, I assume you follow the...
I need y'all to listen up. This is a question. And when she said, follow the money, let's follow the money. Okay. Now watch what she says, jaw dropping. Watch what he says about who's funding these operations.
Money, where did the money lead?
Sure. So for this particular protest, it was funded by Rise and Resist.
Rise and Resist.
Which is funded by George Soros.
Which is funded by, he said, George Soros. Okay. Rise and Resist, that was funded by George Soros. Okay. And now you see the president saying he should be up on charges. So how can these type of entities exist in the United States? Okay. And this is why we can't come together. And this is why this country is not, as strong as she should be.
And you can see that they take money through Act Blue. Act Blue is the Democrat fundraising platform. So People's Forum, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but also has to do with Rise and Resist, because People's Forum is also funding Rise and Resist as well. So, yeah.
That's a lot. Speaking of People's Forum, I know you've spoken.
Now, he's going to let that, sink in. And now he's going to go out, and he has identified an individual that get paid $70,000 to protest. And it's an Asian guy. Okay. You see what I'm saying? What happened to the love? We got all these foreign agitators in the United States trying to destroy this country, and we can't even come together and agree on anything. And this is why their democracy is on life support, and they trying to use Prop 50 to keep the life support system on. But we're going to make sure that it's over, because their democracy is not dying, it's dead. It's just alive on life support.
To someone named David Chung a couple times. Speaking might be a bit generous since
David Chung.
But we actually have a clip of you trying to speak to him. So let's actually roll that now.
This one of the paid protesters.
Then we'll have you comment.
Of course. What's up, David? You want to talk about the last video?
You see this Asian guy? This Asian guy is running one of the operations of the paid protests in the United States of America. An Asian guy. What is an Asian guy having to do anything with a protest in the United States unless his job is to bring down the United States? And this is why we got to start having our common sense.
Oh, good. What did you think of it?
No comment.
Did I get anything wrong?
No comment.
You got no comment?
See, he don't want to talk. No comment.
Bro, they're paying you $80K a year to protest.
He just said they're paying you $80K a year to protest, and watch what he says.
Protest? Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Tell me if it's wrong.
No comment.
Do you think that...
And look at this. It's an Asian guy was at a Palestinian protest. An Asian leading these Palestinians. Look at the Asian talking to the Palestinians. Let's go.
What's that? You gonna stop him from interviewing me?
And see, he's trying to talk to the Palestinian protester who clearly looks Palestinian, but you got the Asian guy telling this Palestinian to not talk. So this thing is crazy. So this is why we got to stand up as human beings and as Americans. And I'm not saying as Republicans or Democrats. I'm a nonpartisan independent. But at least the Republican Party have some type of belief system, because the Charlie Kirk situation looked like a church service yesterday. Okay, because we got to figure this thing out. And like I said, I'm not Republican or a Democrat. I'm standing in the gap between the scribe and the Pharisee. But in this case, the Democratic Party is dead, and they are basically in the political courtroom for their existence, for if they're going to exist. But as the judge in this political courtroom, I'm kind of leaning to the Republican side as the prosecutors, because the America be a better place if we did not have a Democratic Party.
What do you want to prevent him from saying?
See, what do you want to prevent him from saying? You got a Palestinian confused because he's getting paid by the Asian to protest, and he's not saying anything because the Asian guy is telling the Palestinian guy what to do here on American soil, protesting America. This is crazy.
Right, so it's a couple different times.
So listen, so what I'm saying is we got to figure this thing out. So when they talk about paid protesters, and I remember Trump saying this before, and individuals didn't believe it, but I know without shadow of doubt that these protesters are paid. Like I said, I just didn't wake up yesterday. I had a former career. This is my second career. And I basically was involved in some type of protesting. And we had a tag up or a roll call explaining on a particular day at a particular time, we're going to have protesters. We had their, where they were going to set up at. We had their whole itinerary. So I know without shadow of a doubt, you just got to understand, and the people got to understand that, we're dealing with some demonic forces. Their democracy is the devil. And I'm saying that again, their democracy is the devil, because their democracy applauded the death of a human being on live television in front of his children. So that's sick. That's demonic. Okay. And we got to figure this thing out. We can, and we will. All right. So now that we got that out the way. Okay. So let's understand in terms of, them being hypocrites for Jimmy Kimmel. Now, Jimmy Kimmel has lost his job because he basically said some things that were, too quick. Okay. His wife is the executive producer and a writer, and I'm sure that she has something to do with it. But Jimmy Kimmel went and basically said that the MAGA Republicans are so hell bent on saying that he was not one of their own. And this was actually before the press conference. So the press conference actually came out and they told us, the truth. Okay. The mother talked, the father turned him in, yes, he was raised in a conservative red state with conservative parents, but he fell in love with a man who's transitioning to be a female, and he basically went out and shot, one of the young guns or one of the front runners for 2028, or one of the individuals that's the future of the Republican Party. And we all know, without shadow of a doubt, the assassin's bullets, changed the trajectory of history. We all know that. So a lot of individuals don't really understand what's going on, but I do. Because with the Jimmy Kimmel situation, he basically got the same fate as Arsenio Hall. If you don't remember, Arsenio Hall brought Louis Farrakhan on the Arsenio Hall show when they told him not to do it. His show was canceled. Whoopi Goldberg, she got suspended for saying some remarks about some Jews on The View. And then as a woman, she going to come back and apologize. And then Bill O'Reilly got canceled for basically saying some things about Maxine Waters' James Brown wig. He lost his job on Fox News. And I don't, it may be about that, but he lost his job on Fox News for saying that. But I'm going to show a clip of Jimmy Kimmel. Let me see here. Of Jimmy Kimmel saying what he said. So basically, I'm going to play a clip of Jimmy Kimmel when Tucker Carlson, remember Tucker Carlson from Carlson from Fox News? He did some things and he lost his job. And Jimmy Kimmel, basically gave him, basically did the same thing he did for the Charlie Kirk situation. But, the chickens are coming home to roost. And this is a flashback to 2023 with Jimmy Kimmel commenting on Tucker Carlson losing his job. But he ultimately lost his job as well. So basically, karma is real. So check this out.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker Carlson, after all.
You see how Jimmy Kimmel is clowning Tucker Carlson for losing his job? Okay, but I don't see too many people clowning Jimmy Kimmel for losing his. They out there protesting and protesting what? What are they protesting? They're protesting the studios closed. What's the point? But check it out.
Has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means.
And they cheering a human being getting fired.
Comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is.
A delightful shock. A delightful shock. Okay. And I know Jimmy Kimmel right now is saying, man, this did not age well because I got fired too.
More time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's
you see how you see how they have no filter. He could say whatever. I mean, come on, man. I know it's late night television, but did you have to say that, bro?
Probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother tuckers ever to appear on American television.
Wow. And my reaction to that is to Jimmy Kimmel. How does it feel, bruh? How does it feel, Jimmy? How does it feel, Jimmy? How does it feel to get fired? All right, all jokes aside. So Bill O'Reilly got fired for this. Check this out.
We have suffered discrimination. We have suffered isolation and undermining, but we stand up for America, oftentimes when others who think they're more patriotic, who say they're more patriotic, do not. When we fight against this president and we point out how dangerous he is for this society and for this country, we're fighting for the democracy.
Okay, you see their democracy. This is 8 years ago, Trump's first term. And Maxine Waters is talking about their democracy. So their democracy is dead and their democracy is on life support. It's not real. It's gone so far. When they invest money into Prop 50 to save democracy, when they invest fundings in a DNC can't even raise funds because they're funding protests. The DNC can't even raise funds. They're funding protests. The major donors are funding protesters. Okay. Meaning they do not love this country. And these are foreign born individuals, foreign agitators. That's their job is to destroy this country. And if God forbid something were to happen, I'm sure they got enough money to go hide out in a bunker and we'll just be their collateral damage. But I'm going to let you hear what Bill O'Reilly said, about Maxine Waters.
We're fighting for America. We're saying to those who say they're patriotic, but they turn a blind eye to the destruction that he's about to cause this country. You're not nearly as patriotic as we are.
Okay, and who is she talking about? She lying through her teeth because that's what the devil do, is lie.
So what does that mean, Bill?
Watch this.
I didn't hear a word she said. I was looking at the James Brown wig. If we have a picture of James, it's the same one. Right.
No,
and he's not you.
And to prove that was not cap, that was truth. This is That's the James Brown wig. Can y'all see that? And much love to James Brown, because actually that's James Brown's hair. That's his hair. And she got the wig on. No disrespect to her, but that James Brown wig. Y'all see the hair? Okay, now watch this. This is Eddie Murphy playing James Brown on Saturday Night Live. Tell me that's not the same wig. Tell me that ain't the same wig. Let me rewind that. I didn't mean to show that. Nope. Let's go back. There we go. Same wig. Give me a shot of the wig. Nope, I ain't going undressed. There you go. Is that the same wig? Because James Brown, that was his real hair. And Bill O'Reilly got canceled for that. So let's stop playing around and let's stop acting as though, we can't, be what we need to be. Let's be honest with ourselves. So listen, now that we understand what's really going on, it's time to really come together. It's time to come together as a people and really figure this thing out. Because like I said, as a black man, who we're declaring our independence, and, we're not a part of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party clearly is abortion, which is to kill babies. The LGBTQ, which destroys the black nuclear family and stop, black Americans from populating, and then the investment in the immigrant. And then now that the fact has been proven, it's not a theorem, it's not a theory, it's a theorem that these protesters are being paid. So now from a federal government perspective, the federal government needs to, investigate some of these things, political prisoners, do whatever you need to do, because democracy must die. Okay, it's already dead. They just raising funding to keep it on life support because, like I said, to be a part of the Democratic Party, you have to denounce God. To be a part of the Democratic Party, you have to serve the devil. To be a part of the Democratic Party, you don't have a spiritual or a religious bone in your body. And that's just keeping it real, because the Bible is a book of politics that contains religion, and the individual that's in the Bible, Jesus, in the book of Matthew, he said he didn't come to change the scribe or the Pharisee. He didn't come to change the scribe or the Pharisee. He came to fulfill. So just imagine Jesus being on the cross with the two convicted criminals. One of them said that they was remorseful for what they did. Okay. And Jesus looked at him and said that, according to the story, according to the gospel, he said, I for surely will see you in heaven. Didn't talk about no baptism or anything. But that Democrat, that devil, that demonic spirit that was on the right side has no hope. And that's the Democratic Party. So now that you understand the difference between a black man or black American versus an African American is a sellout. And the African American will be the first one to call me Uncle Tom. And I say thank you for that, because Uncle Tom was a hero. But then they'll call me a Sambo, they'll call me a coon, but they don't know that they have, abandoned the race card. Because if you identify with the black race, that's our grace. Okay, RACE, put a G in front of it. That's grace. And there's only 3 races on the planet. That's the black man, the white man, and the Asian. That's the Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongolian. And we all know that. And to be honest with you, the, split 6, the 6 series DNA, it is something that's declassified, and it shows from a human perspective on how the original human being, the Homo sapien, is a series 9 or series 6 DNA, and it's split into 2 3s. I could be corrected on that, but we all know that all humanity was created on the continent of Africa. We all know that every human being in the world got some type of a percentage of African American in them, because we're Homo sapiens. Now, when you talk about Neanderthals and animals and things like that, that's a whole different conversation. Don't want to confuse you. But we do know that the black race is the race. You could go ahead and, thank you for that. You could go ahead and ask ChatGPT, okay, if we had to start all over with the races, what will be the original race on the planet? And ChatGPT will tell you, the black race. It is what it is. No disrespect to any other God-fearing human being. But I'm just here to let you know that it's one race, and that's the human race. And there's an entity out there that wants to stop us, and an entity that wants to divide us, and an entity out there that wants to kill us, because murder is at an all-time high in every blue city that happens to be in a red state. They're not trying to stop the crime. The Democratic Party is the opposition of the federal government. You got mayors and governors fighting the federal government because they don't want the federal government to assist them in terms of stopping the crime, stopping the homicides and the murders in those blue cities that happen to be in the red states. So anything that they put out there, we're debunking. When they sit back and said, oh, it's the red states, but it's the blue cities in the red states. 24 out of the 25 worst cities are blue cities that happen to be in red states. So let's be honest with ourselves. Okay, Chicago, St. Louis, Oakland, LA, Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi, all of these cities are possibly in red states, but these are blue cities with blue governors, blue police chiefs, and all of that. So let's be honest with ourselves. Let's totally be honest with ourselves. So moving forward, our next move have to be our next move have to be our best move, and our best move is to, especially the state of California, we're going to make sure Prop 50 does not get passed, because Prop 50, they're saying to save democracy. So why do you have to save democracy if democracy is not dead? Think about that. Think about that. And the last time, we was in a civil war against the Democratic Party, they was trying to preserve slavery and expand slavery into westward states. But we know that that's not right, because how they treated, the blacks, the slaves as cattle, 3/5 humans. Even in the state of Texas, Juneteenth, they couldn't read or write. It was against the law to teach a Negro to read or write. So basically, they keep you dumb. So if they had an agenda to keep us from reading and writing, so could you imagine and how they're treating us now as the African Americans? Because a lot of the trans people that I've come across, they act like black people. I seen a supposed to be a trans girl boy, but he was acting like he was a black ignorant sister. And I'm sitting back saying, wow, they really are mocking us. They really are mocking us. They basically think to act ignorant, to act stupid is a form of blackness. No, that's an African American sellout, because black Americans, we don't like niggas either. You know what I'm saying? Like nigga with the A, that's my nigga. Love you. But the ER, that's ignorant. We don't like them, because we supposed to have class. And when we look at Jasmine Crockett, in Congress, I'm sitting back to my AKA sisters. Y'all supposed to have class. So do you all condone, black women acting ignorant? Okay, we didn't come this far to do that. The way I was raised, we were supposed to be better than the next. We're supposed to be, based off of merit. But we're dealing in a situation right now where we really don't know what's going on. And somebody put jazzy rackets, and that's what it is, because they're playing to the lowest of the lowest vibration. Okay, they're playing to the lowest of the lowest vibration. And even at this point in my life, raising the bar, we have to, because an African American is a sellout. An African American is a sellout, because an African American will fight to kill babies. An African American will fight for an illegal immigrant before he fight with his brothers and sisters. An African American will identify with the pronouns he, she, him, they, LBGTQ, LMNOP. So now it's time for the great separation, because the party is dead, because the party has lost the black man. The Democratic Party is dead because it has lost the black man. You got foreign nationals funding foreign operations, Asian men running around this country, organizing, getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to protest. Think about that. And when I saw the protest at UCLA, I'm like, how everybody get the same tent? How everybody get the same flag? Okay, there's some money floating around. Okay, they even got, a cooling station where they go get the water, go get the food. And I'm sitting back like, this is pretty much organized crime syndicates. So these organized crime syndicates have hired Asian men, African American sellouts, the Divine Nines, which is a part of a secret society, and they are part of what they call the Illuminati. These are the sellouts. They have no God. They do these rituals and all of this stuff. And they sit back and act like, we're supposed to support them. And with Proposition 50 endorsed by, Barack Obama. Now, come on, man. Black America can't stand Barack Obama because, number one, he's not addressing the fact that he's a gay man. Number two, they're not addressing the fact that everybody say, Michelle is a man. And then he's calling her Michael on all. I'm sitting like, hold up. They better come out and say something because you talking about going viral. That's going to be the conversation. Okay. But I'm going to just keep it copacetic, man. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Hit that like, hit that notification. Thank you for the super chat funds. I appreciate you. Really, I appreciate you. And like I said, the truth shall make us free. So Jimmy Kimmel, good luck, bruh. Go ahead and apologize. I know that's what you're going to do. Your wife wants her job as executive producer and all of that. But it's no different than Arsenio Hall losing his job because he brought Farrakhan on. It's no different than Whoopi Goldberg saying some anti-Semitic statements on The View. Got fired, but she apologized. Bill O'Reilly got fired for telling Maxine Waters had a James Brown wig on. So, freedom of speech, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But if you are a paid employee, you can't just say what you want to say. So freedom of speech is not under attack. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel is employed by a company that wants to cleanse its soul. So now you guys are going to see what sacrificial lambs look like, because like I said, they sacrificed the black race, and our race is our grace, and we coming back, because the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So now that the LGBTQ car over there, black woman, shut up, get over there, no disrespect, be quiet, because you done sold your soul to the devil. And now that you got to repent, go ahead and do that over there, because we have repented. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And if we got to basically sacrifice the Democratic Party and give it back to the devil, that's what we'll do. And we'll walk into the White House ourselves and cut a deal with the president of the United States as a race, not a creed or kosher, but a race of people, because our race is our grace. And if Black America will get its act together, not only America, but the world will be a better place. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to A Better Black America TV on YouTube. I'm your man, Bouchon Glover, signing out. Peace out. Have a great day.